afternoon. May I have your attention? If you've not signed in, please do so at this time. Take this opportunity to silence your cell phones. Thank you.
All right, good afternoon. This meeting of the Louisiana Tax Commission is hereby called to order. This meeting is being held at the offices of the Louisiana Tax Commission at 1051 North 3rd Street, Suite 225, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The date is Wednesday, August 5th, 2020, and the time is 12:31 p.m. Please call the roll.
Chairman Hardy,
Here.
Commissioner Wagstaff,
Yes.
Commissioner Jeffers,
Yes.
Commissioner Berger,
Here.
Commissioner Wood. Here. 5 present, a quorum.
Thank you. All right, at this time, I would ask everyone who is planning on testifying this morning to please stand by your chair, but to stand up and be sworn in as a witness.
You can simply stand where you are. I'm an attorney for the Tax Commission. I'll administer an oath. I'll then indicate to you to affirm the oath by stating I do, and I'll ask you to state your name for the record. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Alexander Mora.
Thank you.
I do, Mark Gillespie.
Thank you.
I do, Maurice Slaughter.
Perfect. Thank you. Y'all can have a seat. The chairman will call the docket.
It is the Tax Commission's policy to accept all documents into the record that were timely pre-filed in accordance with the Commission's rules and regulations. This will be done at the conclusion of all hearings on today's docket. Accordingly, there is no need to formally introduce or introduce the exhibits into the record during your appeal hearing. However, if you intend to object to the submission of any of the opposing parties' documents, you must notify the Commission at the start of your appeal hearing. As a reminder, this is an administrative hearing, and as such, the rules of evidence are relaxed. The Commission is inclined to review and consider all evidence submitted and to accept such evidence into the record. All right, the first item that we're going to take up this afternoon on our docket is item D, as in David, for the appeal of Slaughter Management LLC versus the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 19-22173-231. Mr. Slaughter, why don't you come forward? To enter into the record, the assessor's office has stated to us that they wish the Commission to affirm the value determined by the Board of Review. So we'll make that part of the record. Mr. Slaughter, go ahead and tell us about your property.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity.
Please, I'm sorry, but would you please wear your mask while you talk, if you don't mind? Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you again. Both of these properties were purchased around the same time, about $40,000 for one, $50,000 for the other one. I made a very conscious decision when I purchased it to keep this affordable living. So I did a minimum amount of work to both these houses. The only difference is I painted one house. Even without that, the property should be valued pretty similar. They got a $75,000 difference for a paint job. If you look at what was in the appraisal online for the city, they have 2808 as the photo for both properties. So I know they're going to say that's an error. They made a lot of errors on this appraisal. And they assess that paint job, obviously, for them to still do that. All right, so let's look at the property again. I did a minimum amount of work. I didn't do anything, gourmet kitchen, whirlpool, nothing to keep it affordable. That block has 6 homes in it. 3 of those homes have been blighted since I purchased these homes. So out of that, 50% of that block has been vacant and blighted. The house adjacent to me, I've appealed to the owner to try to purchase it. He owns the warehouse behind me. So he's hoping that house burns up, rots down, so he can tear it down because the historical district won't let him. So he can create a driveway. So I'm letting you see that there's really not a lot of growth opportunity for properties and values raised with 50% of the properties blighted. It's also adjacent to the Norfolk Railroad Yard as well. So at the end of that block is the Norfolk Railroad Yard entrance.
Mr. Slaughter, what are you asking us to value the property at?
About 209. Yeah. I agree with
So you're in agreement with our staff appraisal, which is
Absolutely.
205,000.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Go ahead and tell us, you can tell us some more about your property, but you don't need to belabor the point.
Okay, one more point, and I will, but it just hurt me, so I wanted to mention it.
Sure.
1027 Independence, I gave you all the documentation. Same thing I did, purchased it around $50,000, $60,000. Kept it as affordable living, did nothing to it. They appraised it for $300,000 every year. I always appealed it to the city. I just hired a realtor last year, put it on the open market at high best value. Berthoud's halfway sold it at $209. 30% less than what I've been saying the whole while. Every property in Bywater Valley is not gourmet kitchens and whirlpool tubs, and that's the case of our property.
All right. All right, so you said this is affordable housing?
I kept it. I wanted it to be affordable.
Okay, I mean, it's not legally designated.
No. That's my conscious
Right,
decision.
okay. All right. Well, you made a good case. Why don't you have a seat and let us hear from our appraiser, Mr. Gillespie.
Thank you again.
Okay, thank you very much.
I did appraise the property at 2814 St. Claude Avenue using the market approach and the income approach, and arrived at a market value of $205,000.
And that was an income value of $215,000 and a market of $195,000.
Yes, sir, that's right.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any questions? Mr. Jefferson?
Mr. Chairman, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Please do.
I move on docket number 19-22173-231 that the 2020 fair market value be set as an LTC staff appraisal, land at $97,500, improvement of $107,500, for a total of $205,000.
I'd second that. Commissioner Archer?
Yes.
Commissioner Waxack?
Yes.
Commissioner Wood?
Yes.
Commissioner Jeffers?
Yes.
Chairman Hardy?
Yes. All right, the next item on the agenda, the appeal of Slaughter Management LLC versus the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 19-22173-232. The assessor's office has informed us that they would like us to adopt the value set by the Board of Review. Mr. Slaughter, you want to come on up and tell us something about this property? This is the property at 2808 St. Claude Avenue.
It's immediately adjacent to the previous property.
Okay.
It's the same set of situation. Purchased it around the same price. Decided, made a conscious decision to keep it as affordable. Put a minimum value rehab into it. It's located in a block with 6 houses on that riverside. 50% of them have been blighted since I've owned the property. And it's adjacent to the rail yard. So I think the appraisal for the independent appraisal, I think was a fair number.
That's the $205,000?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay.
Are you currently doing work on this?
I'm
Are
sorry?
you currently doing work on this property?
No. That was 10 years ago? Yes.
And in both cases, you said that the area is a lot of blight in that area, is that correct?
Yes, it's right adjacent to the rail yard, Norfolk Southern rail yard. And 50%, like I said, 6 homes there, 50% of them have never been occupied. 3 of those homes in that block.
And that was both properties, the previous one as well as this one?
Correct.
By the rail yard?
Yes.
They're almost identical in size, the square footage it looks like.
All the difference is I painted one.
I guess this must be the one you painted, right?
Which one are we on?
2808 St. Claude.
Yes, that's correct.
All right. All right, thank you. Let's hear from our
No,
appraiser.
thank you.
Thank you.
I did appraise the property at 2808 St. Claude Avenue, and again, like the previous property, using the market approach and the income approach, arrived at a market value of $205,000. It's almost identical to the
Thank you. And a motion?
I'd like to make a motion on docket number 122173232 that we set the 2020 fair market value, land 80,800, improvements 124,200 for a fair market value of $205,000.
Second.
Commissioner Archer?
Yes.
Commissioner Wagstaff?
Yes.
Commissioner Wood?
Yes.
Commissioner Jeffers?
Yes.
Chairman Shawardy?
Yes. All right. Thank you very much. And this is for 2020. So the rolls are open in Orleans Parish right now for 2021. So you need to recheck your value for 2021 to determine whether or not you're satisfied with that value. If you're not satisfied, you'll need to do the appeal process again. Better to be safe than sorry. Okay?
Thank you very much.
And that's the same thing for you. Okay. Thank you. You're welcome to stay. You watch government in action, but
Y'all had me nervous. I hadn't eaten.
I told you, if you had told us you were coming early like that, we could have gotten you a sandwich.
But thank you all.
All right. Take care. All right. All right. The next item that we're going to take up this afternoon is the appeal of Alexander Mora versus the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 19-22176-001. Again, on this one, the assessor's office said they offered to settle the property at the tax commission staff value. Ms. Mora, am I correct?
That's true.
Okay, all right. Why don't you go ahead and tell us about the property?
Okay, is that okay if I sit down so I can?
Oh, sure, yeah, that's fine, you can do that.
So I'm the owner of 1427 Louisiana Avenue. It was assessed originally at $950 this past year, and I'm asking that it be lowered significantly to $650,000. I know it's significant, but I think it's fair because of equalizing factors based on its original purchase price, needed repairs, and based on appraisals. It's a residential rental property, 5 apartments. I'd first like to explain a very basic fact about my property and how it differs from neighboring ones and ones used in some of these appraisals. It is and you can see in pictures A1 and A2. There are some various pictures of the front exterior. Some are better pictures than others. I'll talk about that in a minute too. But you can see it's a raised center hall cottage. And so originally the living quarters were the main floor. It's a center hall. And then that main floor was turned into 2 apartments by putting a wall down the center hall to create a front apartment and a rear apartment. Front, of course, comes in through the front door, there's a back door for the rear apartment. And that has a lot of architectural charm. It has a beautiful front porch, it has wood floors, high ceilings, nice tall windows, the kinds of things people look for in the garden district. The ground floor was never originally living quarters. When I purchased it, it was turned into a finished basement and turned into 3 small apartments. Low ceilings, small windows, flat floors, linoleum, very outdated. And then there's a rough hallway with a large storage area where the gas meters are downstairs, and there's a laundry room. So that's a significant point about this, because 2,500 square feet of it is a much more desirable or valuable than the other 2,500 square feet, which are finished basement. So I just want you to keep that in mind when looking through this. So as you can see, the exterior is stucco with a shingle roof. It is sound but dated. And I was pulling up my picture so I can give you 1 second.
Ms. Moore, you have an appraisal for $700,000 that was recently done. Is that a number that you're asking us for?
I'm actually asking for a little bit lower than that, and I'll explain to you a little bit about that. First of all, I've provided a lot of pictures, and you'll see some of them are nicer pictures than others. Like you'll see A1, one with the same MLS on it, were these professional photographs. And this latest assessment was done in 2019. I had decided to put the property in the market in 2019 to see what I could get for it, and I asked 1.150 million. I hired a realtor, I got a professional photographer, I got the pictures, I was like, wow, it's not even my place, and it looks great. And they mainly took pictures of the living quarters on the main floor and the front. And, you know, they have the wide lens, you know, cameras and touch shop and everything, it looked great. And I even asked my realtor, is this a good idea, like it'll feel like a big switch when people come in? And he goes, no, it gets people in, it's okay. I had 2 open houses, I had 12 people come through, I didn't get any nibbles, not a single offer, no one even, you know, like, hey, is she negotiable, would you take lower? Nothing. Afterwards, my property gets reassessed for $950,000. So I included some of those pictures so you can see what they look like professionally, and then I included pictures that I've taken when I've been renting my property using a regular camera, so you can really see the differences. And you'll see like pictures A, you know, A1, that's like exterior, and then one of them is like an exterior as I took it, and then I took pictures of like eaves, the side view, those are kind of the A pictures, the roof that needs work. You know, when I bought the property, I bought it in 2012 for $465,000. I did not do a whole lot to it. Like the previous comment, you know, I was keeping rent pretty affordable. I mean, I freshened it up, I painted it, I didn't really do much. There were 2 tenants in the smallest unit who'd been there since before I bought it. I didn't want to be kicking them out. And also, if I renovate, I'm going to have to do the whole thing. Like, I would have to gut it, you know, so it's really hard to piece. All I can do really is cosmetic otherwise. So you'll see like the B pictures, there's some ones that have like an MLS on it, those are the ones that are professional. You can see the difference, and I just like for contrast, I showed you, like for example, B2, there's all the pictures they took professionally in the first part, and then you'll see my pictures following, it shows the exact same space following, and what the difference is. So around this time, I had an appraisal done because, earlier this year, I was refinancing, and the bank ordered an appraisal. So I didn't order it myself, I didn't order it for purposes of security, it's through the bank. And she did an appraisal, and I think she did a pretty robust one, but she was not able to go on the property. I know the tax commission also did an appraisal, but my understanding is, I mean, I never let him on the property, he said he wasn't going to go on because it's COVID. So all he did, I think, was, you know, just take a picture of the outside. And then he had the pictures from his professional listing because he, you know, he had mentioned it to me. So I know both of them, they were partly basing their appraisals on these professional pictures that they found online. Now, the appraisal from the bank.
Oh, excuse me 1 second. You're telling us that the appraisal that that the bank had done, the appraisal did not go on did not go in the property?
Neither did yours. Yeah, neither of them did, because it's COVID.
Well, in our case, it's just because of
Yeah.
COVID-19,
Yeah, the same
we
thing
didn't allow
with the
any of
bank.
our appraisals
Yeah,
for
the
safety
same-
reasons.
The same thing with the bank.
Um,
I will say this, on the one with the bank,
I mean, the appraisal that was done done for the bank is a very well done appraisal. I mean, it's a very well done appraisal.
Yeah.
There's no question about it. And you know, I would, you know, at this point would lean toward looking at that as the you know, as the value of the property. But
yeah, I see the subject photos in the appraisal came from a 2015, I guess, appraisal.
yeah, she did have pictures from a previous one, because I think the same company that the bank used.
And then they used some 2019 MLS photos.
Yeah, I think she used both. I was just starting to say that one, she might have had a little more access to real pictures of it, because I know I sent her a few, you know, that I had taken, and I know that they were the same company that had previously used it, so she said she had some already. Just to briefly, you know, I mean, you can see the condition of it. The ground floor, there's a lot of pictures in, I think it's C, see where they are, C and D that I took, that I submitted, like downstairs hallway. Like the downstairs hallway to those apartments, it's a rough hallway, you know, slab floors, there's a big storage room in back with gas meters. You can see the 2 smaller apartments that these guys have lived in forever. They don't even like me to go in there because they're afraid I'll raise the rent if I, you know, fix anything. But you know, they're very basic, really basic. And even if I put a little money into it, I'm not gonna get a lot more because they are small windows, low ceilings, all that. So that's kind of talking a little bit about the property itself. The other things about it is that the equalizing factors and also some of the comparables, like the appraisal that the Louisiana Tax Commission did. I saw that one of the comparables was on St. Charles Avenue for over $1 million. And St. Charles Avenue is just really different from this. The other thing is when you look at the comparables, a lot of them are 2-story with like full living quarters, 2 stories. They're not like mine, which is kind of like a finished basement. I did see in the Louisiana Tax Commission appraisal for the income approach, they had the multiplier, and the multipliers varied a lot. The lowest one was at 123, and the highest multiplier was at like 220, I think. And the lowest multiplier, interestingly, was a property that looks like it has kind of maybe a nicer finished basement than mine, but it's also raised and it has like a main floor, and then you can see it's got a ground floor. And that one has a lower multiplier. If you took that lower multiplier, my property would have been assessed by the Louisiana Tax Commission on the income approach at, I wrote it down here, it was something around it was under 700,000. It was like, well, if you look at that, it was under 700,000. But just to finish up, what I wanted to present to you all, just to make sure I have it all on the record, and I'm sorry I'm taking a little bit of time, but it is kind of a more, complicated situation. Looking at the equalizing factors, I bought my property in 2012 for $465,000. There's a property next door at 1439 Louisiana Avenue, and I think a lot of that is shown in Exhibits E. Exhibits E have pictures of their property and a little bit of mine, so you can compare. You can see Exhibit E1, that's 1439 Louisiana Avenue. That was purchased the same year I purchased mine. They paid $600,000. I bought mine a few months later, like certainly within a year, for $465,000. So I bought mine for $150,000 less than 1439 Louisiana Avenue. They are now assessed at $761,000. And their property is clearly nicer than mine. They're 2 stories of living quarters, of all the charm, 2 stories. And if you look at that, let's see, if you look at that, sorry, I'm just jumping around a little bit on my notes. That's so $150,000 difference at the purchase price. That's 25% more value than mine at the time of purchase. And their building is assessed at $431,000, mine at $694,000. So mine should be assessed at less for the building. They also have a driveway and they have lots of parking in back. I have a driveway, but it's too narrow for parking, so I only have one small space in the front. Also, if you look at the comparison pictures in Exhibit E showing their property and mine, they put in this beautiful back porch that would be valued at like $40,000. I have like an old fire escape on the back of mine. You'll also see in Exhibit D, I had a contractor who's worked in the New Orleans area for 20 years. He's semi-retired, and he actually came onto the property. He looked in the hallways, he looked in the apartments, he looked visually at the exterior of the neighboring property, and he estimated at $150,000 a square foot to renovate my place. It would probably be about over $500,000 to get it looking like those neighboring properties, more in keeping with that. And and a lot of times it is more to like renovate than to build anew, because you have to get it down to the studs, get rid of the old knob and tube, redo all the pipes, there's galvanized steel, and you have to redo all that. Okay, I also have Exhibit F, and that is a series of photos of 1423 Louisiana. That property was purchased 10 years before I purchased mine, and it was for $365,000. So that was 10 years before me. So clearly a more valuable property. Now the building is assessed at $460,000, which is nearly $200,000 less than my property is assessed. You can also see it has 2 stories, full stories, a beautiful porch in front, lots of parking. It has like multiple parking spots. It's paved over the front. And it has architectural finish on both floors. Exhibit G is a property across the street at 1440 Louisiana Avenue. It's a multiplex where the building was initially valued at $520, which seems really high, and then it went down to $448. So, that building clearly has been lower. The city has realized that it was mistaken in its evaluation of that. Let's see. Oh, here I have my notes on, if you look at the LTC appraisal and you look at the multiplier of 123, using that multiplier, my property would be 646. That's a property on Constant Street that, if you look at the picture, it's 2-story, but it looks like it has like a finished bottom floor.
Multiplier what?
If you look at the LTC appraisal,
Mhm.
under the income approach, he gives like various properties and he lists what the multiplier would be, and then he took like, I guess, an average of 173 and he applied it to my property. But that is taking into account properties that have rentals that have, more luxurious apartments than mine. And it's also quite a spread. It's like 123, and I think the highest one is 2 or 220. So I'm just saying that if you use the lower multiplier of 123, my property would only be 646.
Well, let me just kind of tell you what I've done. If I look at your appraisal, I'm looking at your monthly rent. Your current rent roll is $6,300 a month, which is about $127 a foot. So even if I take your square footage times 1.27 times the 123, you're at 775. So I'm looking at your appraisal and I'm trying to beat it up, but I'm not getting there. I guess what I'm saying is you've got a good thorough appraisal. I think I would stick with that argument because it can be hard to get lower, in my opinion.
So, I guess, appreciate that. I do think that there's that factor on the income and the comparables in the neighborhood. And I guess, again, pointing to, I've given exhibits E, F, and G, I think, that are neighboring properties, one on each side of my property, one across the street. They are properties that are clearly more valuable than mine and that are assessed lower. So the one across the street right now is, I think it's 652, it's a 4-plex. The one next to me at Louisiana Avenue is at 721. And the other one, don't have the figure right in front of me, but,
Do you have your 2021 assessment? Because I noticed on the one you just pointed out, it went from 724 to 652. It was 724 in 2020.
yeah, so I do have the more recent one. I don't have it here as an exhibit, but mine actually went up, I think, or stayed the same. Yeah, it either stayed the same or went up.
So yours went from 920 higher?
I believe so, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I could look it up online right now. I don't have it in front of me, but I know that it did not go down. So if you look at E, for example, I think like in looking at equalizing factors, if you look at Exhibit C, 1439, that was purchased right around the same time as mine. It's assessed at 720 when we bought it. They paid more than I did. I believe strongly that it would be fair to take off, the way I looked at it is this. When I looked at 1439 Louisiana Avenue, I looked at it this way. They paid $600,000, I paid $465,000. That difference equals 25% value. So I paid 25% less than they did. So I've done very little work on it. I mean, I've just maintained it. It looks like they've actually done a fair bit, but I can't swear to that. Assuming they haven't done that much, I certainly haven't. If you took 25% from the value theirs has been assessed at, it would put you at 25%. That would be 650, I believe. Let's see, 25% of 721. I had it a minute
What
ago.
address are you talking about?
1439 Louisiana Avenue.
So they're assessed at 725.
They are. That's all in Exhibit E.
And if you look at 1423, they're assessed at 753.
And when you're
Almost the same square footage of your building.
Right, and as I said, they paid 25%.
It's really not about what they paid. It's hard to get an equity argument about what they paid, because we don't know the details of
whether they got a good deal, a bad
Yeah,
deal,
so-
whether they knew somebody, we don't.
Well, I
We
know
can't
that.
go based
An
on
equity
who paid
argument-
what.
An equity argument is 1423, almost the same building square footage. If it was assessed at 553, then I'd say we have an equity argument, but they're assessed at 753. So that's why I'm saying your $700,000 appraisal kind of supports
Okay.
where you're at, and from an equity standpoint, it doesn't look like there's a big disparity on what you provided us.
Well, I appreciate that, I guess, and I'm sorry, my argument is a little bit all over the map. I tried to write it out, but, there's a lot of information I'm trying to present, and.
No, you're bringing out a lot of details. You might be a lawyer by trade, I don't know.
I am,
No
although
offense.
not in court much lately. So
So every argument's an argument, but I guess we're trying to get down to the
Yeah, I
to the
guess.
real numbers.
I guess again, going back to the beginning of my argument, it's one story of, historic charm and one story of a finished basement. And the ones next door to me are two stories of historic charm. So even if they were totally dated, even if they looked exactly like mine, were in terrible repair, which you can see from the exterior, they're not. And I don't think mine's in terrible repair, but you can see from the exterior it needs paint and needs a new roof, all that. Theirs look like it's painted. I think they all live there, the owners. And I'm just not ready to gut it and totally renovate and spend that kind of money. I have to be looking at to do that. I want to keep it as a rental property. I have nice people there who I charge them affordable rents. I try to keep it that way. And and theirs are just visually, you can tell, are a lot more desirable for garden district properties because they have two stories of, so I do think that it should be lower than theirs.
All right, well, let's hear from our appraiser, Mr. Gillespie, and see what he has to say. Thank you for your
All right,
testimony.
thank you very much for your time. I
Thank
appreciate
you for
it,
your
and I hope
testimony.
it was coherent enough.
Dan, whatever you like,
Thank you.
whatever's best.
Okay, I did appraise the property at 1427 Louisiana Avenue, and of course, to be fair, I was not able to inspect the interior. I spoke to Ms. Moore on the phone. She was very informative. She gave me all the data that she could. Using the sales approach, I determined the value to be $876,000, and of course, I did use a sale that was on St. Charles, but I made a significant location adjustment for that, of course, but they were very comparable properties. And then using the income approach, I did make adjustments for the condition of the subject for these particular GRM sales, meaning most of the sales that transpire in this area at this time are in excellent or very good condition. It's a very hot area. So I made the adjustment so that the GRM would reflect that. Of course, a GRM it's essentially a number, of course, that reflects the value of the property, and they vary. So that's why we had a wide range, and 173 is, in my opinion, is pretty accurate. Now, and that determined the value to be $910,000 using the income approach. My overall value was $900,000, but in all fairness, is what y'all were talking about with her appraisal. If you look at mine and look at sale number 1 on page 5, you'll see that the value of that sale after adjustments of 21% is $780,000, and that was probably the one that was most similar to her property. But of course, that's just the sales approach. But it, in my opinion, that would make a really, and of course, I had to use 3 sales, so the other ones I used the approach. Anyway.
So which one you said is most likely?
On page 5, if you look at the 3 sales,
Yes.
4018 Constance Street It was 0.6 of a mile away. It had the least amount of adjustments in the sales approach. And if the location is very similar versus the St. Charles Avenue sale. And of course, when we get into the income approach, that's a whole different ballgame. But using that particular sale is pretty accurate. And from one understanding, that's a pretty close value to what she may have had in her appraisal.
All righty. All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Waxback, do you have a motion?
Yes, sir. On docket number 19-22176-001, based on the evidence presented by the taxpayer, I would set the land value at $225,600. See about it, sir. And the improvement value at $474,400 for a total of $700,000.
Second.
Commissioner Archer?
Yes.
Commissioner Waxback?
Yes.
Commissioner Wood?
Yes.
Commissioner Jeffers?
Yes.
Chairman Shawardy?
Yes. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, I
Thank you.
appreciate your time.
Go on, have a seat. All right, the next item we're going to take up on our docket today, the
Go ahead and
appeal
stand up and
of
swear you in.
Charlotte Crair
Raise your
versus
right hand. Do you
Charlotte
swear
Parish
affirm
Board of
testimony about
Review,
to give the truth,
docket
the
number
truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
19-22172
What's your name?
dash 296.
Thank you.
All right, you're representing Ms. Greer? Charlotte Greer?
Charlotte Greer Cook, yes, sir.
Yes, okay. Why don't you go ahead to go over by the microphone and
Yes.
tell us about the property. And state your name for the record on the microphone.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, my name is John Creer, Kreher. I'm representing Charlotte Creer Cook. The address of the appeal is 6327 West End Boulevard, New Orleans, Louisiana.
All right, please tell us about the property.
Okay, good morning. I'd like to start with two appraisals that were done on the property, one by the Louisiana State Tax Commission by Mr. Gillespie. He did a thorough appraisal and inspection of the property and came back with a value of $325,000. I commissioned an appraisal of the same property by a company, Appraisal Services Greater New Orleans. A Bernard Wax did the appraisal. He is a licensed state appraiser. He did a thorough inspection of the property and came back with a value of $340,000. Our goal today is to try to determine the value of a property is if it was sold to a third-party buyer. Due to disclosure forms, defects are very important, and inspections are the name of the game. I brought two of the defects with me today to discuss with the commission. The first defect is the foundation, which is cracked and has been reshored with 6x6s. In order for it to pass a home inspection, we brought in Davey Shoring, and he gave us a bid of $109,160 just for the shoring defects in the property at 6327 West End. The second defect, which is more troubling than the foundation issue, is consistent flooding of the property. I enclosed with my appeal several pictures. I apologize for them being so small. I'm not that good with photographing from phones and scanning, But this property in the month of July gets flooded 4 times. It floods an average of anywhere between 7 and 14 times per year. The amount of water it takes on this month alone in July, if you look at some of the photos, it was like that or worse almost every time this month. You might ask, why does this property flood like this? Because there's a service alley behind it and the city keeps piling gravel on top of it and the grade is higher than the property. And instead of going from the crown down, they've actually graded it up on both ends and the water comes down the alley and into this property. The first floor of this property is not living space but storage. But given the amount of water the first floor takes, we must go in and shop vac, pressure wash, and disinfect with bleach every time this happens because of the germs and because of mildew. To try to arrive at a fair market value for this property, given just these 2 defects alone, is a difficult task. If we take the 2 appraisals we have, one by the State Tax Commission for $325,000 and one by appraisals of Greater New Orleans for $140,000, there's a $15,000 difference. What I'd like to do as a starting point on value is split the difference at $7,500 and increase the 325 to by $7,500 to a figure of $332,500. That would be.
Say that, whoa, slow down. Say that number again.
Okay, I would like to take the 2 appraisals by 2 licensed state appraisers. One's for 325, that's the Louisiana State Tax Commission's number, and one by Appraisal Service of Greater New Orleans.
And that's for how much?
$340,000.
What's the $380,000 appraisal?
There is no $380,000.
Said 340.
340.
Let me ask you this question.
Yes.
Would you be satisfied with the 325?
Here's the issue I have. Given the defects, I've learned when selling a piece of property.
Okay, let me stop a second.
Sure, go right ahead.
The staff appraisal, which you'll hear testimony in a minute,
Yes, sir.
he took in consideration the shifting foundation, I think some temporary.
And the defect? Yes.
He took that into consideration.
Yes.
Okay. So the 325 is lower than what you're presenting from your
I
appraisal.
understand, yes, sir.
So are you okay with 325? Are you asking for something less than that?
I was gonna ask for less than that because of the flooding in the foundation at $109,000, because if we take the figure 325 and just tack on $109,000 for the foundation and not the flooding and not other defects, we're well over $400,000 for a piece of property that's 100 years old that has a lot of difficult issues that must be disclosed at sale due to the disclosure form.
So
I would,
so
but
what
if you're
number-
asking me, well, I'll take the 325, if that is the question you're asking me, and you're telling me that your appraiser, who's here to testify, who did an excellent job, considers the defects as part of the deal, yes, we will accept the 325, yes, sir.
All right, let's hear from.
Thank you for your consideration.
No.
If you have any questions, please,
Sure.
I'll be more than happy to answer.
I understand. Are there any more questions? All right, well, let's hear from our appraiser, Mr. Gillespie.
Sure.
You have to make way for the microphone so you
okay.
can sit down.
I did appraise the property at 6327 West End. I met with Mr. Crayer. He was very informative and showed me the property. And of course, I did a market appraisal recognizing the foundation issues, but apparently there was much more involved with it that I did not address, as what he's speaking about, the mildew and so forth. So technically I may have made more adjustments if I'd have known more of that at the time. But based on the appraisal as it stands, 325,000 might be slightly high.
What would be your adjustment based on the mildew and flooding?
Well, I probably would have done something like to the quality of construction. On my appraisal on page 5, I put it all in average condition. Although, because that's essentially the quality of construction is when the house is constructed, that's the type of wood and dormers and such that they use in order to create the home, and I probably would have knocked down put that in fair condition just because of the lower floor is probably compromised in some way. So maybe
what kind of number would that be?
10% adjustment across the board on the sales, which would be
On the improvements or total
on the
total
sale.
value?
Yes, sir. So 30.
So you would take off 32,000 off of 300?
Probably, yes, sir. Yeah, so maybe 300,000.
That's
300,000?
292.5.
Yeah.
So you'd be talking about 150,000 on land and 150,000 on the improvements.
Yes, sir.
And that flooding, as you indicated, comes inside of the residence, not just on the land
No,
itself.
sir, what happens
inside.
is it's seeping underneath the foundation and bubbling up in the
Okay.
first floor, but
Okay, I think that would be reasonable for a $25,000, $30,000
Yes.
adjustment, so, all right.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Blacksback, did you figure out the higher math or?
Yeah, I think, on docket number 19-22172-296, based on the testimony given with respect to the additional, issues with the property on the first floor with the constant flooding, I would set the land value at $150,000, the improvements at $150,000, to arrive at a total value of $300,000.
Second.
Commissioner Burcher?
Yes.
Commissioner Wagstaff?
Yes.
Commissioner Wood?
Yes.
Commissioner Jeffers?
Yes.
Chairman Shari?
Yes. All righty. Thank you very much. That's it.
thank you, everybody,
Sure.
for your consideration.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. I still consideration.
All right, there doesn't appear to be anybody else here today present. So let's go back to the top of the docket and take up the appeal of Vincent J. Corona versus the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 19-22172-295. Give me one moment, please. All right, the assessor's office informs us that they agree with the Board of Review. And the property owner is not present. So we'll ask Mr. Gillespie to tell us about the property.
Okay. I did appraise the property at 5611 West End Boulevard. Let's see, it's a land only, I'm sorry. Using the market approach, arrived at a value of $58,600. This particular property is in a unique situation. The address is West End Boulevard, but it has an alley on one side, and the other side is bounded by the wall from the interstate. And I made significant adjustments for the utility of the property and the view. Of course, it's not a typical residential property, and and my value turned out to be $58,600.
So it's not something you could really build a separate residence on, or?
Actually, I think you could build a house on it, but the alley is so, like if, let's say you have a boat, and you want to park your boat, it's impossible.
So your access to the property would be just the alley?
Just the alley, yes. On the other side, between the fence, the alley here, the property's here, the fence, and then there's just a short little, maybe servitude before it goes to the wall, and there's no access there to the sidewalk. So it's really, and so you could build on it, but it would be.
Does the neighbor own it? Does the neighbor landowner own
No, yes, he owns the property right next to us. I see what you're saying. Yes, sir. He owns both of them. He uses it, if you notice in the photo, he uses it for storage. I think he has that camper is on another property.
it? That seems like 3 dogs.
It looks like
Right.
dog.
He has a dog, yeah.
So it's a dog yard.
Yeah.
All right.
And see that gate that gate goes out to the sidewalk, and there's no road access there. So it's kind of
Gate goes
it's
into the
misleading
side.
right there.
So the land is behind that gate?
Yeah, see, yeah, that's it, behind the gate, and then that, the alleyway is back there.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
We have a motion?
I'm prepared to make a motion.
Please do.
In light of the testimony of the LTC appraiser and the notes that show that the hearing officer recommended a reduction, I would move that we set the 2020 fair market value for land only at $58,600.
Second?
Commissioner Berger?
Yes.
Commissioner Wagglesback?
Yes.
Commissioner Wood?
Yes.
Commissioner Jeffers?
Yes.
Chairman Shawardi?
Yes. All right, the next item on the docket is item G. The appeal of Abbas Almandar Ali LLC versus the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 19-22176-012.
Do we do Zeller?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Oh, sure did. Let me,
Let's see.
well, I'll tell you what, let's just go ahead and take this one up, and we'll go back and do item C. It's 170 Walnut Street?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right, the assessor's office is asking us for the tax commission staff appraisal value. I also want to note that the property sold unit, there was a unit 4C in the building that sold for $769,300 back in 2018, and I did take a look at the various values of a number of the units there, and they all seem to be very consistent, so it doesn't appear to be an equalization problem as far as this condominium is concerned. Mr. Gillespie, why don't you go ahead and tell us about the property?
Okay, I did appraise the property, 170 Walnut Street, Unit 8C, and as you noted, the sale one is actually the subject. It sold, let's see, on October of 2018. The subject is in average, I'm sorry, it's in average condition now. It was probably in very good condition according to the MLS. But the taxpayer told me that he hasn't done anything to it, but the sales that transpired were in very good and excellent condition. So I made an adjustment for that and arrived at a value of $635,000.
Thank you. Do you have any questions? We have a motion? Please.
I move on docket number 19-22176-012 that the 2020 fair market value be set at LTC staff appraisal, land at $20,900, improvements $614,100, for a total value of $635,000.
Second?
Commissioner Berger?
Yes.
Commissioner Wagglesback?
Yes.
Commissioner Wood?
Yes.
Commissioner Jeffers?
Yes.
Chairman Shawardi?
Yes. All right, now we'll go back to item C on the docket, am I correct?
That's correct.
Yes.
The appeal of Carolyn Zeller versus the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 19-22172-338. The assessor's office, I believe, has asked us to accept the staff, tax commission staff appraisal, and the property owner has also requested the tax commission staff appraisal. Mr. Gillespie, please go ahead.
I did appraise the property at 6709 West End Boulevard, including an internal inspection, and arrived at a value of $560,000.
Any questions? Excuse me one second, I see you, did you determine a land value different than what the assessor's office had?
Let's see, I was at 300,000, which, let's see, how much was that per square foot? It was $20. I'm not sure what the assessor was at for.
I know, see you say 375,000.
Well, they were, okay.
He's at $25 a square foot.
I see. I found some pretty close sales and ended up at 20.
Yeah. I suppose for consistency, we'd probably keep the land at the same value as what the assessor has. If everybody's in agreement on that.
I'm prepared to make a motion. then,
Please go ahead.
Mr. Chairman. I would move on docket 19-22172-338 that we set the fair market value for the year 2020 at $375,000 for land, $185,000 for improvement, for a total value of $560,000.
Second.
Commissioner Archer?
Yes.
Commissioner Wagensback?
Yes.
Commissioner Wood?
Yes.
Commissioner Jeffers?
Yes.
Chairman Shahardi?
Yes. Now move on to item H on the docket, the appeal of Herschel T. Abbott versus the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 19-22176-020. The assessors requested that we adopt the tax commission staff appraisal, and the taxpayer agrees with the tax commission staff appraisal as well, although he would accept a lower amount. So, again, Mr. Gillespie, why don't you go ahead and...
Okay, I appraised the
tell us.
property at 6037 Camp Street, it's a condominium, and using the sales approach, arrived at a value of $650,000.
All right, any questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I move on docket number 19-22176-020 that the 2020 fair market value be set at the LTC staff appraisal, land at $123,800, improvements $526,200, for a total value of $650,000.
Second.
Commissioner Archer?
Yes.
Commissioner Wagensback?
Yes.
Commissioner Wood?
Yes.
Commissioner Jeffers?
Yes.
Chairman Shahardi?
Yes. All right, next on the agenda, on the docket, the appeal of CBC Global Inc. versus the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 19-22176-022. The assessors requested that we adopt the tax commission staff appraisal. I'll note that I did find where the property was for sale in the MLS in August of 2019 for $3,750,000. I'm not saying that's what it's worth, I'm just saying they advertised it for that sales price.
Yes, sir, it was significantly renovated.
All right, Mr. Gillespie, why don't you go ahead?
Okay, I did appraise the property at 13 Newcomb Boulevard. I spoke to the taxpayer and got all the pertinent information necessary in order to appraise the property. As you say, it was sold, the property sold in October of 2017 for $1.1 million and then completely renovated. And at the time of the appraisal, I did not have an accurate sketch, but I used, and with the agreement of the taxpayer, used the square footage that was found in MLS for the 2019 listing, 5,725 square feet. And using the sales approach, I found 3 sales all on Newcomb right next to the subject and determined the value to be $2,350,000.
Thank you. Any questions? We have a motion?
I'd make a motion on docket number 1922176-022 that we set the 2020 fair market value land $231,100, improvements $2,118,900 for a fair market value of $2,350,000.
Second.
Commissioner Archer?
Yes.
Commissioner Wagensback?
Yes.
Commissioner Wood?
Yes.
Commissioner Jeffers?
Yes.
Chairman Shahardi?
Yes. taking up the appeal of Brady Shannon versus the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 19-22176-036. Give me a moment. All right, the assessor's office requested that we adopt the tax commission staff appraisal value. And by email, which we recently received, the taxpayer also requested that we approve the tax commission staff appraisal. Mr. Gillespie, please go ahead.
I did appraise the property at 2439 Valmont Street using the market approach, arrived at a total value of $350,000.
Any questions? Now, again, you did a land appraisal on this property?
Yes, and I think it was at $20.
Yeah, your land value is considerably less than what the assessor's office has.
A lot, yeah.
Really? But if you look at the sales on my page 5, they were very similar. I had one sale 3 that was $45 a square foot, but the other 2 were between 18 and 19. And of course, this is located in the Ferret area. But let's put it this way: my range is from $18.32 all the way to $45.45.
Well, you used the value on the lower end for sure.
Yes, sir.
I mean, because the lower end is 1946 a square foot, 1832 a square foot. And
Right.
I believe you used $20 a square foot. And this is going to be one of those where, in all likelihood, that $20 a square foot is much more accurate than, I don't know, what's the assessor's value of 25?
I'm not sure.
How much, 40?
40.
Let me see. It certainly will, if we keep it consistent with the assessor's office, it'll diminish the improvement value significantly, probably way out of kilter with what the improvements are actually worth. Is that?
231.
Yeah, $40 a square foot on the land for the assessor's office.
You want to keep the land consistent though, right?
Yeah, I guess that's probably the best thing to do, but, you know, like I said, the problem is it probably throws the value off significantly.
Well, it brings it, based on his appraisal, from 290 to 231 approximately.
But whatever the pleasure of the commission is.
I'll make a motion on docket number 19-22176-036. The appraisals, assessor's land consistent, I'll set the land value at $118,200. The improvements are $231,800 for a total of $350,000, which agrees with the LTC staff appraisal and that value for 2020.
Second.
Commissioner Vercher?
Yes.
Commissioner Waxback?
Yes.
Commissioner Wood?
Yes.
Commissioner Jeffers?
Yes.
Chairman Short?
Yes. All right. The next 3 items on our docket involve, Mr. Gillespie, if you can correct me on here if I'm correct, involves some boathouses.
Yes, sir.
And it appears that, and I had trouble trying to make heads or tails out of it, hopefully made the right observation. It looked like it's basically one boathouse.
It's
Well,
actually.
it's two boathouses that have turned into one.
That's what happened, yes.
Yeah.
But the assessor's photo on their webpage is incorrect.
Okay.
For one property, correct for the second. Because if you notice on page, on docket number 091 and 092, it's one report. And that's what I've done is combine those two into one deed.
So, again, we're jumping ahead, but your valuation was $325,000.
Let's see, well, yes, sir.
And so you split that between those two?
Right.
Right,
And
okay.
of course, I know we have another.
And then you have another one, which is, you have valued at $40,000.
I believe, yes, sir. Yes, that's right.
Okay, all right, so my decipher of the hieroglyphics was correct.
That's right.
Okay. All right, well, let's go ahead. We'll take up the first one. Item K, the appeal of Brad Adams versus the Orleans Parish Board of Review. Docket number 19-22177-091.
Okay. Now, these two appraisals are actually, the next two dockets are in one.
Would it help if we considered all three of them together?
Well, actually, I think
Okay.
maybe these two together, and then the third one separate, because it's a separate.
But I think you may have misspoke. The
Yeah.
325 covers both boathouses, right?
Well, there's three.
There's three boathouses.
It's three, but it's two separate.
Okay, so the first two would be 325,000
Right.
total.
It's right, that's exactly right, yes,
And
sir.
then you suggested 40,000 on the last one.
It's just a shell, it's just an empty shell of the third.
Okay.
So,
So not 325, but 325 in global for those two addresses.
yes, sir, that's it, right there.
So is it two separate assessments?
Yes, and that's
So
why it's
we need to
confusing.
split the 325.
So at 162.5.
That would make perfect sense because
Yeah.
it's even all the way down the middle.
Okay.
So,
All right, that's fine.
All right, let's go through our formalities, okay?
Terry, you can't consolidate the two.
Yeah.
I mean,
What's that?
we'll issue separate valuations per assessment number, but we can do one decision for the property that's really one boathouse.
and you know what, I don't think I didn't break them out separately, I should have done that in the report. So, that makes perfect sense.
All right, so you want to consolidate, have a motion to consolidate?
Consolidate docket ending in 091 and 092,
Okay,
but then leave the third one separate.
the third one's separate. All right, that makes sense. All right, let me go ahead and, let me make that motion that we consolidate on today's docket. Docket number is 19-22177-091, consolidated with docket number 19-22177-092, both appeals from Brad Adams against the Orleans Parish Board of Review. So that's my motion to consolidate.
Second.
Commissioner Archer?
Yes.
Commissioner Wagstaff?
Yes.
Commissioner Wood?
Yes.
Commissioner Jeffers?
Yes.
Chairman Shahardy?
Yes. All right, why don't we go ahead now and just talk about
Okay.
the two of them together as one?
All right.
Even though we're gonna technically split it between two separate numbers because the way the assessor's office has it.
And that's what happened.
Yeah.
That's what they
So,
did.
all right.
Okay, I spoke to the taxpayer and did appraise the property, 7347 and 7351 roadway. The land is owned by the others, I think it's the Board of Levies, levy board, so there's no land value. The improvement value using the sales approach comparables that are right there next to the subject, $325,000 for both parcels, so let's see.
$325,000 for both, but the assessor has to split, so we would divide it in half, I
See,
guess.
I didn't know what the assessor had for each parcel. I didn't.
Well, we've got two separate appeals filed
I see.
for those two, so I'm just assuming we're gonna have to follow, I guess, the dockets for the appeal
All right,
and do that, but it's the same, it comes out the same.
I got you.
Yeah. Yeah, because the docket number ending in 091 is 7347 West Roadway. Docket number 092 is 7351
Right.
West Roadway Street. So the assessor's office has them to get separated, really ought to be together.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, so it's a value of $162,500 for each of those two. Do you have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, the fact that we consolidate them, or do we need one value, or is it better to actually,
I would think because the assessor's office has them separate, and because it's two separate appeals, that you could make one motion, given the value for each of the dockets.
Yeah, just include the delineation. Because
Alright.
we'll separate it on the decision per assessment number. Or we'll do one
so
decision.
I'll make the motion, I'll include the assessment number in the motion.
Okay.
I would move in on docket 19-22177-091, which corresponds to assessment number 716525820, and we set the value at $162,500. I would also, in that same motion, add docket number 19-22177-092, corresponding to assessment number 716525803, that value also be set at $162,500.
And that's for improvements only.
And that's improvements only.
Second?
Commissioner Archer?
Yes.
Commissioner Waxback?
Yes.
Commissioner Wood?
Yes.
Commissioner Jeffers?
Yes.
Chairman Shaw.
Yes. All right, now we'll hear the appeal of Brad Adams versus the Orleans Parish Board of Review. Docket number 19-22177-093. Mr. Gillespie,
Okay, I did appraise the property at 7353 West Roadway. Again, land value, or land is owned by the levy board. I did the market approach and the cost approach, because this particular property is just an empty shell that's in, it's really poor condition. It would take significant renovation to make this thing even work. So anyway, using those two approaches, I arrived at a value of $40,000.
all right, do you have any questions? Have a motion?
I would move on docket number 1922177-093, that we set the 2020 fair market value for improvements at $40,000.
Commissioner Archer?
Yes.
Commissioner Waxback?
Yes.
Commissioner Wood?
Yes.
Commissioner Jeffers? Chairman Shaw.
Yes. All right, the last two items on the agenda have both been settled, so we're not going to need to hear those. I believe that covers everything on the docket, and I missed anything. No believe so. So, the Tax Commission hereby accepts all pre-filed documents and all testimony into the record. There's Taxpayer Exhibit 1 in Global, Assessor Exhibit 1 in Global, Representative Tax Commission Staff Appraiser, Exhibit 1 in Global, for each appeal hearing conducted today respectfully. Before I accept the motion to adjourn, I want to make sure that we include in our records, as part of the pre-filed documents, the assessor's office position on each of the appeals that we've heard this afternoon, and I requested the same thing for this morning's hearing as well. That'll be made part of the record.
It is there.
Okay. All right, thank you. There being no other matters to come before the commission at this time, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Commissioner Archer?
Yes.
Commissioner Waxback?
Yes.
Commissioner Wood?
Yes.
Commissioner Jeffers? Chairman Shaw.
Yes.